The Polygamous Sex is a book about love. Unlike women, says Esther Vilar, men can love several partners at one time, and the reason behind it is the opportunistic attitude of women. A woman will pretend to be a child in need of protection by the man. She virtually puts herself up for adoption. In this way, she forces him into polygamy. A man with a child wife needs another woman as a real sex partner. Since the woman who comes to play that role in his life also wants his protection, he has to look for a third woman, and so on. 17 powerful lessons from the book, The Polygamous Sex. Number 1. Man is not only an animal, he does not only follow his instincts like an animal. He can recognize them, make himself aware of them, look at them objectively, modify or generalize them. For instance, a man can extend the principle of resemblance and see himself in creatures of another species or kind which are in need of his protection. He can decide on purely rational grounds that human beings whose skin color differs from his own are nevertheless like himself, despite anything his instincts might say to the contrary. Whites are human too, blacks are human too, and that physical or mental cripples are like healthy people. This humanization of the nurturing instinct, restricted by and large to mankind, is what we call loving our neighbor, or altruism. Altruistic love is the nurturing or protective instinct cultivated through insight. Number 2. Just as a man can rationalize his protective instinct and make it function as altruistic love, he can also rationalize his sex instinct. Unlike an animal, a man can decide to give up sex for a time, or even permanently, for cultural or religious reasons, for fear of consequences, or for the sake of advantage. A socially advantageous marriage, for example. Instead of repressing his sex drive altogether, he can modify it, resorting to substitution or transposition. He may, for example, desire X, who has certain specific attractions for him, but if he cannot get X, he can make do with Y, whom he finds less attractive, but better than no satisfaction at all. This kind of adjustment we call rational love. Love based on reasoning rather than primary instinct, or as some might say, based on higher insight. Number 3. To sum up, the qualities that arouse the protective instinct are the opposite of those that attract a sex partner. Protector and protege are outwardly alike. Sex partners are complementary opposites. Proteges are physically and mentally inferior to their protectors. Sex partners are physically and mentally equals. These three sets of qualities, opposite and mutually exclusive, of proteges and sex partners, determine the basic attitudes towards each, also opposite and mutually exclusive. And yet we call these profoundly different emotions by the same name, love. Love has become of necessity, then, the most dangerously misleading word in the language. Number 4. Men can, theoretically, expand their power by controlling their sex drive in such a way as to bring the female into a one-sided sexual dependence upon them, as they are usually superior to their partners both physically and intellectually. They can rarely appeal to the female protective instinct. Therefore, a man can have absolute power over a woman only in exceptional cases. Women can, theoretically, expand their power by controlling their own sex drive, so as to reduce a man to a one-sided sexual dependence upon them. Being usually inferior to their partners, physically and intellectually, they can also appeal to the male protective instinct. They alone, therefore, are in a position to serve both as ward and sex partner, as inferior and polar complement, at the same time. Theirs is the only power block of the three that has what it takes to hold absolute power over another. The male. Given that all human beings seek power, it is absurd to assume that women could give it up of their own free will. Number 5. A protege, we have said, must be inferior to the protector, and must resemble him. If a woman wants to enjoy the privileges of a protege, she must be physically weaker and less intelligent than the man whose protection she is seeking. If she cannot meet those indispensable conditions naturally, she must try to simulate them. The other condition, resemblance, she cannot fulfill. The woman will therefore offer herself as a pseudo-child, an inadequate object for his protective instinct. She will try to become the object of his altruistic love. Number 6. A woman's best trick in maneuvering herself under the man's protective wing, however, is her intellectual inferiority. The difference in physical strength alone would never do it. At most she might succeed, using all her efforts, in looking as helpless next to him as a Chinese next to a Swede, and this is far from enough to gain for a human adult the enjoyment of a child's privileges. Only when a woman is both physically weaker and sillier than he is, too, can she become irresistible to him. The woman who intends to find a lifelong provider will therefore see to it, as a top priority, that she does not become too intelligent. If she should slip up here, she will hide her light under the proverbial bushel at least long enough for the man to officially set his legal seal and signature on his intention to become her provider. Number 7. To be a man's protégé is to be provided for and to have material security. To be a man's sex partner means to be desired. It means pleasure. Since most women choose men superior to them, a man I can look up to, we may conclude that they value security more highly than pleasure, and that they prefer to be the object a man's altruistic rather than his sexual love. That women prefer men who are taller and stronger than themselves could be a coincidence, since most men are somewhat taller and stronger than most women. That women prefer men who are more capable than they are could also be a coincidence, since the competitive struggle for survival that most women are spared compels men to be more capable than women. But it is no coincidence that women prefer men older than themselves. Nor is it by chance that these qualities are neatly apportioned between the partners of each couple. The women smaller, weaker, less intelligent, younger. The man bigger, stronger, brighter, older. Number 8. Compared with a child of one's own, which one protects automatically, a woman makes a somewhat inadequate object of one's protective instinct. When a man takes her on as his charge, he does it not instinctively but consciously, by persuading himself that here is a helpless creature who needs him. Every woman is therefore in competition with every other inadequate, non-instinctual protégé. Orphans, the sick, the old, the mentally disabled, the poor, young pups and stray cats are basically all much more in need of protection than women. How to distract a man's attention from all these potential competitors and concentrate it exclusively upon the woman seeking to arouse his latent protective instinct is therefore a major problem. Number 9. Once a woman has opted for the role of the child instead of lover, the next step is predetermined. A child must not show too great an interest in sex, on pain of losing credibility and a child's privileges. A woman who values her status as protégé, therefore, must keep her sex drive under control. She must be in a position to make conscious use of her sexuality for her purposes, i.e., to win a man who appears suited to play her father, rather than a man who excites and confuses her senses and her mind. And she must be able to refuse herself to her intended protector until he adopts her, or at least commits himself clearly to such an intention. To see primarily the sex partner in a man is the end of her power over him. It means losing the motive of making him her protector. What good is a lover restrained by protective feelings and being quite as dependent on him sexually as he is on her? Number 10. Children don't love their parents. They are merely attached to them. They need them, and sometimes they even like them. When father and mother have the knack of clothing their instinctive and essentially self-gratifying nurturing of their brood in the image of self-sacrificial devotion, they may enjoy as a fringe benefit the child's guilt and gratitude as well. But this is not love, nor should it be. If children returned the love of their parents in full measure, life would come to a standstill because they would never want to leave home. Children, by and large, tend to leave their parents at the earliest possible opportunity to go looking for their own love objects, protégé. Many never return home or do so only out of a sense of duty. Number 11. A man who wants to gain power over a woman must follow the example of women and condition his sex drive. If he succeeds in becoming as cold as she can no longer bait him with sex into the role of provider. At most, she could offer herself as an equal sex partner, as dependent on him as he is on her. If men could abstain from sex at judicious intervals, they might even succeed in normalizing the female sex drive, even make women desire them more than the other way around. Not that a man could have absolute power over a woman even then. He could hardly hope to become her protégé, except in rare cases, but he would come considerably closer to equality. Number 12. Men who are strongly motivated in their choice of a partner by their nurturing instinct and turn to predominantly childlike women who are considerably younger, less intelligent, smaller and weaker than they, necessarily have to satisfy their sex instinct with their protégé. To have sex with someone you regard as your child is incest. Not that they are aware of it as incest. It is not easy to realize that a man is drawn to a woman by his nurturing instinct. The sex factor is what catches the eye, but all those altruistic feelings he has for her, like wanting to take care of her, defend her, work for her, fight for her, these are the feelings of a father for his child, not really those of a lover for his woman. Number 13. The husband with the child wife will eventually need to extricate himself from his schizogenic situation and as a result abandon monogamy for polygamy. He will divide his love between the wife as his protégé and another woman as sex object. To give to the one, take from the other, protect the one, challenge the other, spare the one, but not the other, the burden of his physical demands. Male polygamy arises from the fact that men need women to satisfy both their nurturing instinct and their reproductive instinct. This suggests that they can love more than one woman at a time. In reality, however, they love only one as a woman, the other as their child. Women are unlikely to suffer from such confusion, since they satisfy their two disparate instincts with two clearly demarcated classes of persons. They have their children to nurture, their men for sex, and so women are considered monogamous by nature, while men are polygamous. A man, they say, needs many women. A woman can be content with one man for life. Most men are not aware for the underlying reason for their instability, since they have sex with their protégé and with their sex partner, though far more frequently with the latter. They assume that having more than one woman is in the nature of male sexuality as such. Number 14. Love between man and woman is based on sexuality, as we have said, but why do we generally love one partner at a time and not several? Why is it that even those who have a choice do not sleep with a different partner every night? Why do we go without sex when the beloved is not present, instead of taking an accessible sex partner to bed? Why are we faithful when we love, jealous, and intolerant? Why does love between a man and a woman include a fixation on a specific person? To understand this, we must first of all know what a person is, i.e., we must briefly consider the structure of the I. Number 15. Only sex is the act of love without love. It is sex between partners who fundamentally do not understand each other. Sex partners who live on different intellectual levels can stay together only when each one has someone else to define him. Only sex means psychological infidelity, a favorite escape hatch for couples forced by circumstances to live together all their lives. The woman has a best friend whom she defines in accordance with the strict rules of femininity and who represents all womankind in defining her value as a woman, depending on how many children she has, the quality of her furniture, how well she dresses, the social position of her husband, etc. The man has his friends, colleagues, political associates, who provide him with partial definitions of himself. This extramarital source of self-definition permits the two partners to go on regarding the reason for their life together as love. Number 16. It can be dangerous for a man to be intelligent beyond a certain degree. The man of average intelligence tends to focus on one aspect of a situation at a time, which enables him to come to a decision and, in general, master his life with relative ease. But most situations have more than one aspect, and the highly intelligent person sees all the possibilities at once, is torn between alternative views, solutions, consequences. In short, above average intelligence leads to indecisiveness and existential anxiety. The intellectual longs for one thing above all others: someone to tell him what to do. He is always searching for protection and can never find it anywhere. Whom can he accept as his protector? Certainly not someone less intelligent than himself, and he is not likely to meet someone more intelligent when needed. Number 17. There are men who do not merely say that women are oppressed by men, but really believe it. These are public fathers because of their intellectual incapacity. Men who are incapable of interpreting the simplest facts in a coherent fashion. This incapacity does not necessarily affect all of their thought processes, but only one aspect or another of their intelligence. Friedrich Engels, Karl Marx, August Bebel, and Sigmund Freud were intelligent men, but they failed unequivocally in their ability to analyze the relationship between the sexes. See, the weaker sex holds all the aces. The simple explanation for this is that men brought up by women, and who is not brought up by a woman, cannot be in a position to think about women objectively. Modern psychology is based on the assumption that most of a person's values are formed in the earliest years of life by the person in charge of the child, the mother, that is. All of the great male proponents of women's rights have been the products of solid middle-class families. Their mothers were protégés of the first rank, naturally given to defending their favored status with the well-known brainwashing techniques. These men saw very little of the real family slave, their father, because his slave labors in support of his family kept him away from home. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, you probably will not see us again. If you have, congratulations, you are growing every day.